It's blustery out there. That's why I'm in here. Today's shop project, we're going to modify a hot tent wood stove. So this wood stove has some problems, and we're going to fix that today. Now, I've already done some modifications to this wood stove, and if you want to see about those modifications, I'll have a link down below to another YouTube channel called Pine Tree Line, and I'll put a link directly to a hot tent video where this stove is being utilized. And in that video, I discussed the modifications I've done to it. Now, this wood stove belongs to my buddy Doug from the channel Pine Tree Line, and after a hot tent outing that we did, there were some clear problems with this wood stove, and Doug gave me the green light to do whatever I want to this wood stove to modify it to make it perform better and suit the need of a hot tent situation. So the stove is actually a pretty decent stove. It is an inexpensive stove that came from a store called Princess Auto that we have here in Canada, and it's pretty decent, but it's lacking a few things. Now if you look at it, you see this metal grate on top. First of all, I got carrying handles, which is fine, that's a good idea. But these metal grates right here are designed to swing out like so. And I guess it's meant that you can hang mittens or anything, gloves and hats, whatever, off the side of them, so that wood stove can dry up all your wet items. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to remove these, because the real problem with it is when you're cooking on here, you don't have a flat surface. So if you put the grills down like that, you got a nice flat surface you put your pots and frying pans and cook over top of. But it doesn't work very well. If you can imagine on your kitchen stove in your kitchen, if you take a frying pan and you put it on your burner on your kitchen stove and you cook. Now just imagine if you take that frying pan and you elevate it a ½ inch above the burner plate or the heating element on your stove, it would take forever to cook, and that's exactly what happens here. So these are going to go, and I'm going to cut the top of this stove out, because once these are gone, we no longer have a flat surface. This round surface makes it terrible to work with. And I'm going to add a flat surface to it, but I'm going to cut it out, not just weld a flat surface on top, because that takes longer for the heat to conduct through it and then onto your pot or frying pan. Also, this flue pipe, it's bolted on here and it's rigid, and the original design, the original modification that I did was to add this damper. And I discovered, and I'm going to say it's probably because of the small flue pipe size, I discovered that this damper really didn't add a whole lot to the stove. There was none in there originally. I put it in there because I always had a wood stove with a damper so you can control the draft. But I think it's because this flue pipe is so small, at 2 3/8 of an inch in diameter. It really didn't add a whole lot. So I'm going to remove it. But I'm going to do an extra modification to this flue pipe. I'm going to remove the flue pipe completely, and I'm going to incorporate a different setup. Now this pipe slides on top here. It won't right now. There we go. Now this pipe, the upper pipe slides over top of the lower pipe. And that's actually a terrible design, because as creosote forms inside the pipe, the creosote will run down the pipe and run on the outside of the next pipe. And creosote is flammable. So what would happen here is, if you have creosote running down the pipe, it could ignite and it could start a fire where you don't want it to be. So I'm going to reverse that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this long pipe, because it's cumbersome when you're packing out the stove. And I'm going to incorporate on the flat top surface a shorter pipe, much shorter, and I'm going to flare the pipe so this goes the other direction. Instead of the flare, let's see if the camera will pick it up right here. Instead of the flare being in this position, the flare is going to be on the lower pipe, so this turns this way, and that way when the creosote runs down the pipe on the inside, it'll continue to run down on the inside and not run on the outside, making the creosote stay within the stove. So those are the two main, or three, the flat top, the removal of the grate, and the flue pipe. Those are the three main components I'm going to concentrate on here today. So stick around. We'll break out the grinder. We're going to start cutting this out, start fitting, and we'll see how far we get with this today. Okay, so there's the first part of the build, and now we're going to move on to this piece of flat bar. I have to cut him down to the right length, mark it out, cut out the top. She's a little bit cold today. Alright, so it's been a couple of days, it's been 2 days since I visited the stove. And let me move you in closer. The welding is complete. And I gave it a light grinding on all the corners. Often referred to as breaking the corners in the welding industry. Just to make sure there's no sharp edges. So everything is welded. So now I'm moving on to the next task, which is the flue pipe. Now the flue pipe, as you just seen, I chopped it off. This was the original length. I'm getting rid of the old damper that I had fabricated because I felt that it was not really adding a whole lot to the value of the stove upon testing when Doug and I did a test night. And now we're getting back to the flue pipe that has a flare. And the flare originally, so this is on top of the stove. Let me turn this camera here. So that goes on top of the stove over here. And originally the flue pipe goes on top like that. But the flare is out. How do I flare this? Well, you use one of these guys. So this is a special tool. It's called a tailpipe expander. Let me get this collar back on the stove so I'll keep it stable, and we're going to stretch this collar to accommodate our flue pipe. Now I don't know if you guys seen what happened there, but as I tighten this up, all these different fingers of this tool expand out, and it's just a matter of cranking it and spreading that flange. Dead battery syndrome. Let me recharge. Okay, with a little bit of off-camera grunting because my batteries just kept dying out on the my impact on my driver, so I had to use a power bar and crank it down manually. But here it is. There's a reveal. It used to go this way. It doesn't fit anymore because I flared it. There we have it. Alright, that concludes the stove modifications. Now it's time for another test night with this thing. Be sure to look out for that video in the future. Everyone, I hope you like hanging out with me in the shop today. I appreciate every one of you. Leave me a comment down below. I love to hear from you guys. Catch you on the next one.